Hey everyone, it's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. I am here with our Pittsfield at-large City Councilor, Karen Kalinowsky. Karen, thank you for doing this today.
Thanks for inviting me, Mike.
Absolutely, always a pleasure to have you on. So last night, Tuesday the 10th, was a City Council meeting, and it was a pretty good one. Short 3 councilors, but still a good one. And one of the topics that was discussed pretty heavy, and I've discussed it a bunch, and a lot of people in the community have, is the snowstorm over the Christmas weekend, that the roads were a disaster. We had 70 car accidents from it. A lot of damage was occurred from that. And people are wondering what happened. So where does that stand right now?
Okay, we discussed it last night it came up during Councilor Cronick's petition, which asking us not to appropriate any more money toward the Department of Public Works until they came forward with what happened.
And that money would be for outfitting the vehicles for,
yes.
Is it magnesium chloride or calcium chloride? Which one of those that
yes.
we were looking to get?
Yeah, and so we talked a little bit about it, but the big meeting on it, where the mayor and Commissioner Ricardo will be there, will be on the 24th of January.
So the answers to what happened and then where we're going in the future is still a couple weeks away.
Yes.
Okay.
It's been prolonged.
Okay. So then we'll be talking about that again in a couple weeks, I guess. So the other big thing, which I've received myself a lot of messages on, and I know you have, we talked about this earlier, is people that are in shock right now that are opening their mailbox and getting their tax bills for the year. And people are shocked with the increase. And that was discussed a little bit at last night's meeting.
Yes.
Well, by the public.
By the public. It was really nice to see people from the public coming in. It's too bad more people don't come to our meetings or pay attention, because if we could have people show up at the meeting when they were asking us to okay the property tax, it would have made it easier, I think, for somebody like me that fought against it. Myself and 2 other councilors.
Right. A few months back, it was you, the Ward 1 councilor, and the Ward 2 councilor were asking for the mayor to take an additional $3 million from the free cash account to offset these increases everyone knew was coming based off of inflation. Because if the assessment values are based off of last January's assessment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so was at the height of inflation. I know since then it's on a downward trend, with the feds continually raising rates, which I think Jay Powell said they're going to stay on that track. And at that time, when those people, you guys were discussing that people were going to be paying more, some of the councilors argued you're building equity in your home. It's a good thing. You're building equity. And people like myself and you and others we already knew those values were going to come back down. The only way you would build equity is if you sold your house at the height of that, but then you would either have to leave the community, or what was you wouldn't be able to find another house. All the values were up. So there was no equity really to be made there.
For young families, they might have, if they wanted to do work on their house, they could have got a home equity loan higher because it's valued more. But the majority of our population that is residents paying taxes is elderly and retired.
The bulk of our homeowners are seniors?
Yes, and these seniors just they brought their family up in their homes. They want to live in their home until they die, and they don't care about the equity.
Right, and if you're retired on a fixed income, chances are you're not going to refi your home, and a lot of them, I'm sure it's paid off, so why would you want to do that? And right now it would be tough, I think, for a senior on a fixed income to get that loan.
Yeah, and I'll give you a story of a lady that did contact me because of her increase of property taxes went up pretty high. She didn't buy her first house until she was 60. She retired now at 65, and the jump was so high that she didn't know if she could keep her home. She says it needs a new roof. She needs, other work done on her house, but she goes, I can't even afford to do that.
Well, because people are struggling with groceries. People definitely, look what just happened with utilities, with electric bills. They're saying in some cases for people that's up 60 to 75%. Just inflation in general. And what the feds are trying to do, it hasn't really taken effect yet. We've still got a ways to go, and a lot of people on the market are talking a recession coming out of the end of second quarter, and that could be really bad. So what do you say to people? Because I've gotten one message that sticks out to me is a couple days ago, a gentleman sent me a message saying, look, I'm a single dad. I work full time, 2 jobs. I'm raising 2 kids, and my tax bill just went up another $1,400 a year, and he was shocked. What do you say to them?
What I've been telling people that have contacted me is I told them to contact the assessor's office and have the assessor come out and assess the property. The lady I'm talking about, she looked up what the property was assessed of the houses around her, and she has a small house, and the houses around her are bigger, but they're assessed at a lower rate than hers. I think that will help her. For what reason they assessed her house higher, I don't know, but that's something that the assessor office would be able to check into and fix. The people they gave us an average of what people's property tax would increase, and it wasn't as high as I'm hearing. People have 22, 26. I have somebody that had 60% that their property tax went up. And how do you afford that?
No, people are struggling right now with, I know I'm still in shock every week I go to the grocery store. It's shocking what everything is. And electric bills now is scary. So I can imagine for someone on a fixed income, where are you going to pull it from? And that's the problem. When this was being discussed, you and the other counselors were asking for free cash, an additional $3 million to try to offset this. What was the reasoning behind that? And that being said, do you know what is available in the free cash account?
Okay, right now, because it's been certified and so it was in the agenda, we know that we have over $17 million in free cash.
Wow.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is a considerable amount,
yes.
Probably the most we've had in there in a long time.
Yes. They put, some of it was from the $10 million the mayor took from the ARPA.
Okay.
They didn't say how much of it, but they said some of it. But I know Eversource owed the city on some taxes for quite a few years, and last year they were in a dispute over it, and they decided to pay the city. Because knowing that happened, I brought up trying to use that money in something previous that the city wanted to take money out of another fund for it, with the payment. I can't remember what it was, but when I asked Mr. Kerwood how much money we had in free cash, he's like, I don't know. It hasn't been certified yet. Well, there's no way between November and December that he didn't know that there was almost $17 million. He didn't have to say exactly the exact amount, but he could have known, okay, it's going to be somewhere around this amount. So
they were probably expecting the payments coming in from Eversource.
I believe they had them. I don't know if they have to go through a certain thing. There's parts that I still need to learn when it comes to the finance and the different accounts and what it goes through.
Well, because free cash is in essence overtaxation.
Yes.
It's surplus but what the taxpayers paid.
Yes. Yeah. For the most part, yes. I look at it this way. They knew that they had about this much money. And the fact that when Eversource wasn't paying their taxes for these years, the taxpayers had to make it up. So there should have been no reason why they said no when we asked for them to offset it this year. We knew. We brought up the same things you did. Everything else is going up.
Right, because, we've talked before, I know you don't want it to be a regular practice. every budget to say, well, we got to take free cash to offset the tax rate. But under those circumstances, coming out of this pandemic and all the increases and everything else due to inflation, and knowing that those numbers that we were seeing on home values, we were being told on the market that was going to reverse, and they expected that to start on a downward trend. And then at the end of a 3-year period, many economists are saying it'll level out and come down 20%. So there's no true equity there for a senior citizen who's just looking to stay in their home. It's just a couple of years of paying more in taxes, and then it'll come back down because the house value will come back down. And then on top of it, you have the ARPA funds, and I think what upset a lot of people that I talk to is they see these, little ceremonies where the mayor is awarding people, here's $500,000 for you and $750,000 for you, and that upset people because they couldn't understand why we couldn't take some of those funds, at least from the free cash, if it couldn't come directly from the ARPA funds, to offset that. I mean,
for the property taxes, it could have came from that $10 million. For reducing the fees for the water and sewer, we could have used a big chunk of that money on the upgrades that the city has to do with it, which is our $1 million upgrades. I mean, multi-million-dollar upgrades. We could have put a big chunk toward that, and I was pushing it on people that paid attention to the meetings. I kept pushing the mayor on that as one of the things. To use the majority, and that other towns have done it. Because in the long run, it's saving the taxpayers money. Because if we don't have to take loans out for that, then there's no reason to keep raising the fees.
Now, could any of those funds also be used for, like, say, the roads?
I'm not sure.
Because we know,
it can be on, okay, so it can be on, like, say they do water or sewer upgrades in the road, and they have to dig up the road, and then they're going to pave it afterwards. Then yes.
Okay.
Because it's part of the water and sewer was something they specific put in for the ARPA funds that the city could use it for that.
Which other communities did.
Which other communities did. Used, and they didn't even get as much as we did, but they put the bulk of the money because for that saved all the taxpayers money.
Okay. And, speaking of that, because I know we're running out of time here, but speaking of roads anyway, knowing what we're already seeing out there now, and the climate changing is a real thing. There's no doubt about it. We're seeing the past few winters, different weather patterns coming through, and it's done a number on our roads, which we're seeing an early pothole season already. I mean, it's just started January, and we're already seeing that. Do you have any information or knowledge of how are we preparing for that already? Where are we with that? Or are they just going to wait till people are furious because it gets so bad again? Or is there any plan in place on that?
I mean, not that they've come and told us. I mean, I am aware that they were filling potholes on Barker Road because people told me.
Which Barker's horrible. I travel it 3 times a day.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the person that was telling me wasn't telling it in a positive manner. I mean, I haven't gone out and looked at it myself, but it's very frustrating for me knowing that we're buying this asphalt to put in the holes, and the next big rainstorm, it's all going to wash away. So there goes our money that we just invested.
It seems literally like a Band-Aid on a rainy day.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. I believe in doing something right the first time. I think it might cost a little more on sometimes by doing it that way, but it saves you in the long run.
So what would you say to the constituents? I mean, I know we talked about this earlier. Thing that drives me crazy is those council chambers are usually empty.
Yes, I think more people need to be involved in, like the people that did come forward and speak yesterday in regard to the taxes, the raising of taxes. I think that's good. I mean, I wish we could fill the chambers, especially when there's important thing that will affect everybody in the city. You know, they need to see that you do care, and that, you know, when we're doing a meeting and we look out and there's, you know, 4 or 5 people and that's it. It's easier for some of the other counselors to just agree to everything, I think. I think if they had their constituents sitting in front of them.
I mean, as much as we discuss this, and I discuss taxes and videos, there's people that are opening their mailbox the past week or so going, what the hell? I mean, they're in shock. And unfortunately, during most of those meetings, again, the council chambers were empty.
Yes. Yes, and you know, and I know people have busy lives, and there's a lot going on, but it's important to keep up on that. The budget season's going to be coming up. It's really important because I think the city needs to, start doing some cutbacks. Needs to start asking some of the departments to, cut back on their budgets a little bit.
Well, speaking of budget season coming up, which it is, it's months away. Another thing this year, it's an election year. So, and a big one, probably one of the most important ones in a long time for Pittsfield, because our police chief is retiring in July, so we're going to have a new police chief. There's a mayoral election, and of all the council elections, there's a lot of change coming to Pittsfield. And there's been a rumor that I've heard from people saying that, well, Karen Kalinowsky is going to run for mayor. Is there any truth to that rumor, or are you going to run for at large again? What do you know what you're doing?
Well, when the other two candidates announced themselves, I started getting some texts and emails, and then when I run into people asking me if I will run. It's a very difficult decision. It's something I know I would do it differently than the other two, but what I don't have, and I found this out when I ran the first time, is I don't have that political backing. I don't have that machine behind me. I don't have the money. When I ran for the mayor the last time, both other candidates spent over $100,000, and I don't have that. So if I did run, I would need, a lot of the constituents behind me to help me, because it's tough canvassing the whole city.
So is it a possibility that
it's something that I'm still thinking about, because if I run and I don't have that help and I lose,
then
I won't be on the council.
Well, let me ask you this then. If you don't run for mayor, will you be running for re-election for city council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, if you do make a decision on that, you'll have to come back and...
I'll let you know.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Karen, that was a lot. We covered a lot in a little bit of time. But, yeah, it's just there's so much going on. It's going to be such a busy year. And hopefully people get engaged. And hopefully if you can't show up to a city council meeting, you can watch them on PCTV's website. You can watch them on Spectrum Cable, channel 1303. But I think you're right. People being there in person is powerful. Yes,
it definitely is. I watched it myself when the sports club for the snowmobiles, when I was at a meeting.
Oh yes, that was packed.
It was packed, and guess what? They got what they wanted. I mean, watching.
You know what I liked about that one? And I'm sorry I cut you off, but they stayed the entire meeting. And that always drives me crazy when you see the council chambers fill up, and then as soon as the public speaking segment is done, they go.
A lot of them do, yes.
And the public speaking segment, like when I interviewed our city council president, Peter Marchetti, one time, he said that's his least favorite part. And it wasn't trashing the people. He was saying, because we can't respond to that. If it's not on the agenda, that's not what we're talking about that night. So it's not a place for dialogue with your counselors. That's not the point. You speak for 3 minutes and then the next person.
Yes, that frustrates me. I don't know why we can't speak. There's times I'd like to, like one of the ladies that spoke in regard to her taxes, she looked like she was ready to cry when she walked out. And I wanted to follow her. I felt awful. I mean, I just, in one other meeting, I did follow somebody out that was upset. Because how can you... They're people.
Yes.
And I get their frustration, because I sit there and I want to respond to some of the things that people say. So I don't know why that rule is in place.
If we had a community center or a place that there could be quarterly meetings, even if they're, because I understand that everyone has a lot to do when you're a city councilor, but even just 4 times a year, if it could be open to the public and a question and answer forum, and, that would be huge. I know that when Mayor Tyre originally ran for mayor, her first campaign, community center was something she pushed hard, and then it just kind of faded off into the distance. And I thought, even with these ARPA funds, that when they came in, which seems like most of them are gone, I saw where even the administration fees are exceeded considerably where they said they would be. I don't know. I think a community center would solve that problem, and I think that's why you have so many people that show up for that open mic, but it gets you nowhere. Because if it's not on the agenda, there's no communication there. So they say what they say, and then it's done.
I mean, I wouldn't say it gets you nowhere. I mean, I pay attention. Sometimes I take notes. But I can't say it's ignored.
But there's no dialogue.
Yes, there's no dialogue. You can't go back and forth. I have, and this last year I asked for meetings, open meetings, and it just doesn't seem like it's something that.
I think that's a necessity, because when I feel bad for some of the people sometimes when they're talking and you can tell they're nervous, their head will shake a little or something, they're reading their thing and then they're going to need to wrap that up, sir. And, I know he has to do that because there's, you're there for what's on the agenda, but I feel bad sometimes for some of these people because it's a big thing to get up and speak publicly, and then once you get that first warning, you're going to need to wrap it up, you get flustered and the whole thing falls apart, and your message never really got to come across. So. No,
I agree. I go to the senior center twice a month. I go to the library. I will meet constituents once a month.
Maybe I'll host something here.
That would be good. I mean, like I said,
we could even do a call-in for people.
Because I think we need more community involvement. I mean, the community is frustrated with what's going on, but when they can't talk to us unless they see us out. I mean, I have to say, in the last year, I can go shopping and 3 hours later go home because people have stopped and talked to me, which I don't mind.
That's why I was late today. I got stopped at Walmart.
But, things like that happen, but that's part of the job. But that's how you can talk to people about what's going on with them, the concern that they have, questions that they have. I have to say, probably in the last 6 months, instead of the first ones, I have more people that contact me, more people that email me, more people that call me than I did in the first 6 months. So.
All right. Well, Karen, thank you so much again for taking the time to do this. You're welcome back anytime, and I'll be bugging you to come back after the meeting on the 24th. So.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
You too.